and fill out my itinerary. Hello explorers, it's Kita the Explorer here, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here, and I hope you stay a while and travel with me and do some photography with me. Today on my channel, I'm going to talk about how to plan a trip without a travel agent, because I never use a travel agent, and when travel agents reach out to me to plan my trip, I decline because those are coins that can be in my pocket for my vacation. So I'm going to tell you the layout of how I plan my trips if you're interested in planning your own vacation or your own trip without a travel agent. So how I'm going to go through this, I'm going to give you what I do for any trip, so whether domestic or international. Then I'm going to talk about a few things you need to do if you're planning an international trip, and of course, a few things you need to do during this epidemic. Stay tuned, and we're going to talk about all of those things. But first, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and a notification bell right next to it so you'll be notified when all of my videos are released. Videos are released on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Time and Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And like I said, on my channel, I talk about all things travel and some photography. Now let's get into today's topic about how to plan your vacation, your trip without a travel agent. So we're going to talk about what I do for trips to go anywhere, how I plan trips for anywhere, domestic or international. So first off, what triggers my planning experience is booking a flight. And that allows me to know which dates I'm traveling, whether I'm booking a flight deal or if I'm booking because I plan to go. Either option, that triggers my planning experience because I know exactly what time I'm going to arrive, exactly what time I'm going to depart, the times I'm going to be there. And that gives me the structure of planning my trip. Now, I know this isn't for everyone, but the next step for me is booking somewhere to stay, whether it's a hotel, Airbnb, and in some cases, for some people, a hostel. It's whatever you prefer and whatever is cost efficient for you when you travel. I know some people who do wait until the last minute to book somewhere to stay. I mean, you need somewhere to sleep. It's very important, but there are some places in the world that get very busy, especially during high season, and they may be out of places to stay and you're homeless when you go to your trip or vacation. So I don't always recommend that, but some people are successful. So it all depends on what you want to do, but that is the next thing that I do when I plan a trip is book somewhere to stay so I know I have somewhere to sleep and somewhere to lay my stuff at night. The next thing I do is book transit, or at least research transit, because every city in the world is completely different. So I may need to book transit to get me to and from the airport. Now, in most US cities, you can rely on ride-sharing services for the most part to pick you up from the airport, but you have to keep in mind that when you arrive, it could be a surge, or it could just be a surge period because they're picking you up from the airport. But a lot of times, if I'm not traveling to a US location or going to see family where they can pick me up, or friends where they can pick me up, I book a shuttle service from the airport. So I know when I arrive, someone has a sign with my name on it to pick me up and take me to wherever I'm staying in that city. Otherwise, I do research to see what type of transportation options are available where I'm going, whether it's public transit, so a bus or a train, or if they do taxis. Of course, ride sharing does not work everywhere in the world, so it's definitely something you have to research so I can know how I need to, or how I will get around once I visit. So I may not necessarily have it booked, but I do need to have a plan on where or how to get around. Next thing is book activities or research activities. So a lot of times, especially when I'm traveling internationally, I usually book activities in advance. If I'm traveling domestically, I may or may not book activities in advance. It depends on what I'm trying to do. If there are like some significant excursions or something like that, wherever I go, I tend to book it in advance, and I tend to research and look for activities through one, Facebook travel groups. There are plenty out there. Obviously, you still have to weed through people's commentary, but at least you have a direction on how to start. Like for instance, one tour that I found in Cappadocia, Turkey was found in a travel group called Travel Community, which is a travel community from Scott's Cheap Flights. I also will just ask friends if they've been there before. I will ask them, okay, what did you do once you got to this city? My favorite thing to do is book tours on Viator. It used to be a separate company, but I now believe TripAdvisor owns it. But Viator connects with local tour companies around the globe, and you can find tours of any length or any category on their website. Really structured tours, and I have used them on a lot of different occasions. And you can actually see my review of Viator linked up here in the card above. Also, the last thing is Airbnb experiences. Airbnb experiences are catered by local people. They're not actually tour companies like on Viator. They're local people like me and like you who are doing their own tour. I actually have my own Airbnb experience in Atlanta where I do photo shoots around the city. And you can go on there to find tours as well, or things to do. You also may want to just do a Google search and find things like museums that you may want to go to, or maybe you want to go to a show like in Australia, Sydney, go to the Sydney Opera House. So there's some places where you know some things, popular things to go to, but you just need to research them. So a lot of times, like I said, if it's an adventure, I'm going to book through Viator or Airbnb experiences. If it's something that really big, an excursion that I want to go to. Otherwise, if it's a museum or something like that, I make sure I go on their website and research how much it's going to cost, as well as their open times, because they may be closed one day during the week. You need to plan that and go from there and fill out my itinerary. The next thing that I do is prep my dog. So for my travelers out there that have pets, you need to make arrangements on who's going to take care of them while you're away, unless you're taking them with you. But I have a huge dog. He cannot travel most places, and I'm not putting him on a plane. Therefore, I make sure I make arrangements with his doggy resort so he'll have somewhere to stay while I'm on vacation. So make sure you make those arrangements, whether it's with your friends, family, or your own pet resort, to make sure they have somewhere to be while you're on vacay. Another thing that I do, and I tend to do this shortly after buying my flight, because like I said, buying my flight triggers my planning experience. So also after buying my flight, I buy travel insurance. Travel insurance is very important. If you have not learned that we need travel insurance when we travel, I don't know where you have been. People were very skeptical about having travel insurance prior to 2020, and some people have caught on. Travel insurance is very important because what if a flight or your airline goes under? As we're seeing, there's airlines right now that are having significant troubles because they don't have the staffing and they're canceling flights right and left. Hello, Spirit. Hello, American Airlines. I mean, airlines cancel flights, but they have been on the news and significantly canceling flights recently. But that's a whole different story, whole different video. But travel insurance can cover that experience. Travel insurance could cover your luggage, but it also is important because what if you get sick due to, the Rona, or just sick in general, or you get injured and you need medical assistance while you're traveling? The insurance will help you. So it's very important to have that for that instance, because your health insurance in the United States may not work and typically does not work abroad. So you definitely have to research if it does. You need to look at your credit card and see if it offers some travel insurance coverage. But otherwise, you need to make sure you have a policy specifically that covers travel health insurance. And you'll see a link down below that will take you to my preferred site for buying travel insurance. It is the Travel Insurance Master. It's a comparing tool, so it compares different travel insurance policies from a variety of companies. So you can look at what travel insurance you may want to have and compare costs and compare what's covered. but it's definitely recommended. Now, I must say, traveling domestically here in the US where I live, I don't always buy travel insurance because my credit card does cover things such as luggage, damaged luggage or lost luggage, and I have health insurance in the United States through my employer that works throughout the country. And that's why I don't typically always buy travel insurance here. But if something happens with the airline, I could be in trouble, right? So you definitely need to research travel insurance and get some travel insurance before you go somewhere, particularly abroad. Okay, so for me, I don't have to do this when I travel domestically here in the United States where I live, because my bank and my credit cards know that I'm a traveler. They just know. But if you do not travel often within your domestic area in your country, you need to contact your banks and your credit card to make sure they know that you're traveling. Because this happened to my brother. My brother is not a traveler, and he came to visit me here in Atlanta, Georgia. He does not live in this state. He used this card once to purchase something, and they cut it off because they thought it was fraudulent because he doesn't travel. But for me, if I travel outside of the country, it will happen to me. Therefore, before I go somewhere, I contact my banks and my credit cards to make sure that they know that I'm traveling outside of the country. So make sure you do that, or you won't have any money until you get in touch with your bank while you're on vacation. Hey Explorers, have you signed up for my mailing list yet? If not, head on over to ketoexplorer.com/subscribe and get on my mailing list and see what's going on my website, because I have some information that will soon be released and you need to be on the mailing list to get it. Also, did you know I sell prints from my travels and photographs from all over the globe? So make sure you head on over to ketoexplorer.darkroom.tech so you can pick out photos from South Africa to the United States to liven up your space, just as I did with this photo. Now back to the regularly scheduled program. So those were all of the items that you would do if you're traveling anywhere domestically or internationally. Now let's talk about the few things you need to be aware of when traveling internationally. First off, you need to make sure you check to see if you need a visa before you go somewhere. That is very important, because if that country you're trying to visit requires you to have a visa for tourism, business, or whatever it may be, and you fly there without one, you will be on the next flight back home because they are not going to let you in. A website that I use that is very helpful in determining this, and you can actually use them if you want assistance in visa services, is cibt.com. So you can go in there and put where do you live, where you're going, and for what reason, and they will tell you if you need a visa or not. So, and like I said, they do have visa processing services, but obviously there's going to be additional fees on top of what the actual visa costs because they're doing it for you. If you do need a visa, you need to visit the embassy located within your country in order to determine what you need to do and how much it will cost and how long the processing times are. Also, you need to make sure your passport is still valid. A lot of countries require that your passport has a certain amount of pages available, as well as has a valid date of 6 months prior to expiration. So you need to make sure you look up those rules on that country's tourism website, or like if you live in the US, you can visit the State Department and go to that country on the State Department's website, and it will tell you that information there. But make sure your passport is valid. Do not wait until the last minute to renew your passport, because it does take time, especially right now during the epidemic. Things are just slow. I read recently that it's taking about 18 weeks to process passports here in the United States due to a variety of reasons. And so you may not get it back in time, but there are ways you can get it expedited. If your office is open, they do have offices in the US, like in Atlanta, where you can go in, you can make an appointment, go in, do same day and expedite it. Obviously will cost more. And you can also, if it is urgent, reach out to your US senator and they will possibly assist you in getting your passport renewed and expedited. So just avoid all that stress and renew yours as soon as possible. Okay, the next thing you need to do for planning an international trip is look up the money exchange. So you need to see how much one of your currency equals the currency of another country. So for instance, I'm from the US, you need to know how much $1 equals in another country. It could be more, it could be less. And you also need to look up how you can get cash. I highly recommend having a little bit of cash when you travel abroad, because you just never know when you may need it. And some countries may not always be willing to accept credit cards. Like in the Turks and Caicos, their taxis did not accept credit card payments. So I had to have cash available, but luckily they took US dollar. So you need to make sure you know, because you could possibly arrange to get cash, foreign cash in advance, whether from your bank, you need to contact them to see if they do that, or TravelX. And you need to see what type of currencies either your bank or TravelX may have, or what they can order. So you need to look at that and be aware of how you can get cash either at home or when you get to that country. Okay, the last thing you need to do for international travel to get you prepared is to look up vaccinations. Your home country may require you to have vaccinations to go to another country, depending on what's going on in that country. And I'm not just talking about the Rona, you guys. There are required vaccinations. Some may just be recommended, but there have been required ones. I know that I went somewhere in the past and it was required to have the yellow fever vaccination before going to another country. And the airline will actually look at that vaccination before you get there. There also may be countries that you go to where a vaccination is required, like yellow fever, and they may not let you in if you don't have it. So you need to look up those vaccinations early enough so you can make sure you have time to get it, because vaccinations, again, like yellow fever, are not always widely available. So make sure you look that up and know what you need to do in advance. Okay, so enough about international travel planning. What about, the epidemic? There are significant or special things you have to do in order to prepare for a trip during these Rona times. So the first thing, you need to look up the local testing requirements. If you're going to another country, you need to know what type of COVID test is accepted, such as PCR, antigen, or whatever it may be. And you need to know how many days prior to departure you can take your test. Another thing you need to look up in regards to the epidemic and travel to another country is quarantine requirements. If the country that you're going to has a short quarantine requirement, like a day, you may be able to swing it. But if you don't have that many days to travel, or you don't have that much money to travel, and the quarantine requirement is 14 days, you may not even want to consider going. And lastly, you need to know if your home country requires you to have a negative COVID test before returning home. So you need to look at your options, and you really need to know where you're going to get that COVID test before you even go, and know how much it costs, because there could be tests that are free. There could be tests that are $50. And for my upcoming trip to Italy, the hotel quoted me like 200 euros. I'm like, they're crazy. So I got me a at-home test kit, which is why I know they're FDA approved and they're approved by the CDC. So make sure you're prepared to do that as well. Okay, so that is everything that I do in order to plan for a trip. I know it's a lot, so if you have any questions or if you need any recommendations in any of these categories, please leave those questions down below. I'll be glad to help. But I do not plan trips, but I will definitely guide you and help you plan your own. No shade on travel agents. I have used one before for a friend. She was planning a big trip to the Dominican Republic, so we did have a travel agent. Even though I still asked the travel agent if I could use my airline miles and book my own trip or my own flight. So I definitely was able to work with a travel agent, because I was like, I'm not paying for my flight when I have points. But no shade, if you want to use the travel agent and it makes it easier on your life, that's great. There are some really awesome travel agents out there. You just have to do the research, because I don't know. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Also, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And don't forget to share this video with your friends, family, and your social media networks. Now let me go finish planning my trip to Italy. Bye.